On today's Money in the Morning, the Israel election results are out. Benjamin Netanyahu set for record fifth term. We're going to talk about that without talking politics. How are we going to do that? You're going to find out on today's Money in the Morning. Well, hey there, and welcome to Money in the Morning. I'm Joe Saul-Sehy, Average Joe Money on Twitter, live from my mom's half-finished basement in Detroit, Michigan. This is the show where we tackle a headline ripped from the financial press, and like some shows, we're going to read them to you, but we're actually going to go a little further, and we'll explain what they have to do with your wallet. And today, we're also going to cover some politics without talking politics. That's today and every day at Money in the Morning. Well, I'm super excited to get into this today, guys, because we've got a lot of fun. We're going to define a bunch of terms, but to do that, we got to get this party started. So, Laura, help us out.
Good morning. You supply the coffee. We'll bring the headlines. Here they come.
Hey, our first headline comes to us from BBC News. It appears at the time that we're recording this, a day before the audio and YouTube channels get this. In the Israel election, Benjamin Netanyahu set for record fifth terms, according to the BBC. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu likely to secure a record fifth term after almost complete results from Israel's elections suggest a new right-wing coalition. His Likud party is expected to finish with a similar number of seats as ex-military chief Benny Gantz's centrist Blue and White Alliance. But Likud and right-wing allies are set to be the largest bloc with 65 seats in the 120-seat Knesset, local media said. The 69-year-old premier is facing corruption allegations. However, the election result means he could become Israel's longest-serving prime minister later this year, overtaking Israel's founding father, David Ben-Gurion. Exit polls had predicted a tight race with no clear winner, prompting both Mr. Netanyahu and Blue and White leader Benny Gantz to claim victory Tuesday night. And it goes through this piece. It says, Netanyahu says, it will be a right-wing government, but I'll be prime minister for all. I'm very touched that the people of Israel gave me their vote of confidence for the fifth time and an even bigger vote of confidence than previous elections. I intend to be the prime minister of all citizens of Israel, right, left, Jews, non-Jews, all of Israel's citizen. No party has ever won a majority in Israel's 120-seat parliament, and it's always had coalition governments. So let's get into this. Why, when we don't talk politics here on Money in the Morning, why are we bringing this up? It's interesting. As we record this, the Tel Aviv 35, the TA 35, which is the biggest index in Israel, is up today, and it's up on what we call fairly strong volume. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means people are betting on this election right now with their money. When we see strong volume, people think it's a great day to invest, and we've got this government coalition coming in, same prime minister as we had before. I want to draw a line, though, without getting too much into a foreign election. Let's pull back from the foreign election. Let's talk about this. There was a similar election in the United States, and we saw the stock market go crazy in all kinds of different directions. We saw a huge sale after Donald Trump was elected. And then immediately after, then we saw a huge upswing after that. And then we had some volatility beyond that. But what's interesting about this is that this is a great way for us to draw a line between two different types of investors. And for those of you new to the investing game, I'm going to explain why this might matter and also why it might not matter. There are two different types of people out there with stock portfolios. Number one is a trader. Number two is an investor. And those terms are sometimes used interchangeably, but today we're not going to interchange them. They are two totally different people. A trader is somebody who trades mostly based on short-term things going on. So there are two types of analyses of a company. There is technical analysis and there is fundamental analysis. Technical analysis, if you've ever seen a stock graph, and they'll show all kinds of indicators. They'll show the MACD, they'll show the stochastic, they'll show all of these technical indicators. Those are trader indicators. Trader indicators want to look at all that analysis, and then they look at the news and they decide if today's a great day to make a trade. And a trader's goal is to make a decent sum of money every day. A lot of traders that I know, at the end of the day, will go to cash. And then at the beginning of the day, the next day, we'll deploy that cash based on news and based on charts. And maybe they'll leave it for 2 or 3 days. There's another term that we see often, and you can use this when you're looking at your mutual funds at a place like Morningstar. You can use it when you look at exchange-traded funds, called turnover. And turnover in a mutual fund will be important because you may pay a tax whenever the manager of that mutual fund buys and sells. And what I'm saying here is that there's 100% turnover for a trader on an average day. A trader is going to bet on an election. Not all traders will, but you'll see with an upswing in the TA-35 today, the biggest index in Israel, or an important index in Israel, you will see there's people betting on that today. And people did that around the U.S. election. On the other side, you have investors. And investors are much more long-term. When you invest in something, you're more concerned with a different type of analysis, not the charts and graphs. You're interested in the numbers and the numbers around what this company means for you, for your portfolio, for a long-term approach. And so when you invest in a company, you're really interested in that company. You're still going to look at some short-term results. You might look at this election or the U.S. election a couple of years ago, and you might say to yourself, is this a good time to buy that company? That, by the way, is called top-down analysis. Top-down analysis is where we start with the economic conditions overall, and then we go down step by step to which sector looks good under these economic conditions. And then third, and on the bottom, is inside that sector, which companies do I really like? And then I dig into the numbers on those companies. A bottom-up analysis is where I start with the company and I start with those numbers that I really, really like. Maybe I'm looking for a company in a certain sector doing something that I know, that I believe in, but then I'm going to do a bottom-up analysis where I'll take that and I'll say, is this sector poised for growth and are these economic conditions good? So bottom-up or top-down. I love being able to go over these terms, by the way, because I remember hearing all these terms when I started investing. Bottom up, top down, technical analysis, fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis is what an investor is interested in. Where is this company headed? What's the heartbeat of the company? So when you take a look at fundamental analysis, you're going to look at measures like revenue. How much money does the company have coming in? That'll be, you'll look at sales. How much money from revenue, because revenue could come in different ways, right? How much of that is sales of their product or their service? You'll also look at debt. How much debt does that company have? And it's fun, by the way, if you're not an investor yet, to even do this with your own money. Pretend that you're an investor. And if you do a fundamental analysis of your own investments, what's that going to look like? It's pretty interesting. Are you a buy? Do you think that you're a company people want to? And what moves do you have to make you a buy? But that's fundamental analysis. So if you are a trader, to put a cap on this election in Israel might be very important to you, depending on exactly what technical analysis and what news you're interested in. If you are an investor, whether it's in the United States, in Israel, someplace else, usually an election and all this volatility is a distraction. I'll put one caveat on that. And that is if you think that election, doing your top-down or bottom-up analysis, is going to affect that company in a big way. And certainly you can always make a case for whatever you believe, right? I mean, we have these thoughts in our head, and if I believe X, I'm going to make sure that all signs point to X. So I want to be able to keep a clear mind. But if you believe that some election is going to hinder one part of the economy, and I make that a strong conviction, like a candidate comes out and says, I can't stand X things, and I want to raise taxes on those types of goods by a lot so that they can't succeed in our company or in our country. Well, then you might have an issue. But generally, this is just going to be noise. For a trader, it's going to be heaven. For me personally, you might be asking, Joe, what have you done? Usually I'm an investor. Every once in a while, I will turn into a trader when things look super, super easy. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, there was a Ford quarterly earnings report coming up. And things have been kind of sketchy in Detroit, as they have been from time to time, believe it or not. I know, hashtag spoiler there. But when I looked at Ford, what was interesting to me was that Ford had just announced all of these capital improvements. And this was just a couple days before Ford was going to have their quarterly earnings announcement. Now, you don't make capital improvements 2 days before an earnings announcement unless that earnings announcement's going to be good. So I went and bought a bunch of Ford. By a bunch, I mean you never buy more than 5% of your portfolio in any individual position. And I usually do much less than that. But baby, I backed the truck up. Ford stock went up 2.5% in a day. I was out. Done. One day. Ford announced all kinds of great things. Announced that life was good there. Stock surged more than it usually does by far. Stocks usually don't do 2.5% in a day. I mean, 2.5% a day, I was done. That was Joe as a trader. Not usually what I do. Usually, I'm much more interested in a company that has very little debt, huge cash flow, very competitive in their marketplace, in conditions that are a win for that type of company. I generally myself do bottom-up analysis. Don't pay attention to technical analysis much. Mostly look at fundamental analysis. And now you know what all those terms are. That's why I wanted to talk about this election. So our first takeaway here is trading versus investing. You get a gold star because you stuck with me there. Let's say hi to everybody hanging out on Facebook. We do this live in front of a Facebook studio audience. They had to wait a long time today to get into the studio. They got very lucky that they got to hang out with me. That may or may not be true. Katie's here with us. Says, yay, Joe's live. We are live, Katie, unless you're listening to this or watching YouTube tomorrow, in which case, no, we're not. But for you to be live, all you got to do is head to facebook.com/iStackBenjamins. Lori's here. Hey, Lori. Donna's here with us. We waited for Donna before we started. That's good. Kevin is here. He's headed to Detroit in the near future, so hopefully we get to hang out a little bit. Karen is here. Cheryl and I are headed to Montana. Hopefully we get to hang out with our friend Karen. Sean is here with coffee. Ronald is here. And Jim says, technical analysis always seems like 20/20 vision. What's interesting, Jim, the more I dig into technical analysis, the more it's correct and it's great indicators. In the few times that I've been a trader, I've used technical analysis to help me along the way. And I like knowing technical analysis even when I make a trade as a fundamental investor, so that I have a little bit of an idea of what the trade, if the traders are bullish right now or bearish right now, there might be something that I don't know yet. So I'll dig into that. But I've also found that when I pay attention to the technical analysis, if that stochastic goes really low, I'm the value investor in me absolutely loves that. And you see that work over and over. Now, the reason, to your point, that it works is because it's voodoo, because everybody thinks it works, right? If nobody thinks it works, technical analysis doesn't work. But the fact is that it usually does. news trumps everything when it comes to technical analysis. So you can do a bunch of technical analysis, a piece of news comes out and it wrecks the entire game. But generally, not that bad. Ronald asked when we're coming to Boston. That's interesting, Ronald. Possibly this summer. OG and I were just talking about Boston yesterday. If we come to Boston, it'll be on a Wednesday. So here's what you need to do. Just mark every Wednesday evening off on your calendar for the entire summer. And we'll tell you later. I wouldn't do that if I were you, but I think we're coming this summer. So happy to make it up to the Northeast.
This show is created by Joe Saul-Sehy, hosted and produced by Bobby Rebell and Joe Saul-Sehy, is engineered by Caden Thompson, and all put together by a pack of well-trained ferrets down here in Joe's mom's basement. You'll find Bobby at the Financial Grown-Up Podcast and Joe at the Stacking Benjamin Show. Go say hi to them there, too. Online, visit us on Twitter at Average Joe Money and at Bobby Rebell, or come join a live recording at our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/iStackBenjamins. I know you already know this too, but Money in the Morning is for entertainment purposes only. You should not act on anything recommended by a bunch of entertainers in a basement or even a Manhattan kitchen without first consulting your financial advisor. And second, dude, have your head examined. Have headlines you'd like us to discuss? Send them to joe@stackingbenjamins.com or put them on our Stacking Benjamins closed Facebook group. This show is a collaboration of Stacking Benjamins LLC and BRK Media LLC. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor Doug, and I reserve the right to always say, we'll see you next time back here on Money in the Morning.